Okay, abusua ba makwa abasonko so edeba Ghana Politics Avenue so abusua yembonra yensemu Chief of Defense Minister CDS Ede ensembi abawe tudwa na nsem odi abawe tudwa no wama ye full details on investigations on a military aircraft crash na ekoko crash ye no abusua yensem mre kra no yenko na yenkonko tie ensem a Chief of Defense Minister Ede tudwa unsubscribe ya subscribe like na share ma afofron so ensa into me enkabi aha Ghana Politics Avenue so and don't forget to click on the notification bell send a any updates bia ya be drop bia no onso onsa ebe to me aka madam say
as to the fact that we have not been very proactive in terms of our communication. Investigations into aircraft accidents of this nature takes time. Probably for what you were referring to, when incidents like this happen, the initial communication that comes up has to do with the passengers and where their relatives must go to seek for information. But the initial communication cannot delve into the accidents. In our case, we were very sure of who was on board. Their relatives had been contacted. And so that aspect of updating the family was not an issue for us. In terms of the recovery exercise itself, this is one of the fastest recovery exercises involving helicopter in our country. The last time that we had a similar incident in the Chiwa forest, it took us 3 days to get to the accident scene. In our case, when we suspected that something might have happened to the aircraft, it took us additional 30 minutes for us to apply the known protocols to see where the aircraft was. Because once an aircraft loses communication, it doesn't mean that it has crashed. It could be flying very low, out of radar. It could be weather condition, or it could be mechanical. So after 30 minutes, once we realized that we were still not making progress, then we initiated what we call the rescue efforts, because we still didn't know whether there were casualties. But subsequently, based on information we got from some of the locals around that area, we had to change that rescue effort to a recovery effort. So the closest military post at that time was the team that had gone to secure the helipad to receive the helicopter. And they were as far as Obuasi. It took them some time to get to the scene. By that time, the locals who were at the scene had already started interfering with the crime scene. What I can add is that the medical team was also following up with everything that they needed just in case they were survivors. At the team site, our personnel did whatever they will do. It was getting very late. The place had been sealed off. And I will not use the word cordon off because we didn't even know the extent to which the wreckage had dispersed. As I speak today, every day the personnel on the ground keep expanding the search because we don't know exactly where all the wreckage the bits and parts of the aircraft might be. Let me just run it up by saying that we had to do the recovery effort with the available and appropriate material we have on the ground. We had some body bags at the scene, but the remains were so heated that it was not conducive for the bags to be used. It was in a thick forest, it was getting late. We had the option of leaving our remains there till the following day, and we know what could have happened to the bodies. So the team that was up there assessing the situation decided to use available material they could lay hands on to start to descend the high ground. At the foot of the hill, they met the medical team, and with the body bags that they had, some of which have been also sent from Anglo Gold Ashanti, they kept our fallen heroes in those bags decently. They kept them in ambulances and sent them to Kumasi, where they were kept in coffins and draped in national colors, befitting their status as patriots of this country. Subsequently, we moved them to Accra, and you saw the kind of reception that was arranged for them back in Accra. Let me say that all these things were done hurriedly. So there might have been some mistakes. In the morning when the aircraft was taking off, nobody expected any such disaster. But from the crash to Accra, it's possible, likely, that some things might have been done that were not in conformity with our culture. But I must tell you that those who are on the ground assess the situation, and from where I stand, and looking back, I think that they did the best with the resources that they had at hand.
The NPP, during the NPP's visit to the NDC at the NDC's headquarters. Stay with us here on Hot Edition. But this evening, we're learning a bit more about the Ghana Armed Forces efforts on the day the military helicopter crashed in the Ashanti region, claiming 8 gallant men, including 2 cabinet ministers. The Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General William Ejapong, has been speaking on initial efforts to locate the helicopter and the challenges rescue and retrieval teams were confronted with. The last 7 days has seen spirited public discussion on how the accident scene was managed and retrieval efforts by the armed forces. The CDS has been providing answers. First, on the loss of contact to the aircraft, he spoke during a courtesy call on him by the leadership of the Ghana Journalists Association.
Something might have happened to the aircraft. It took us additional 30 minutes for us to apply the known protocols to see where the aircraft was. Because once an aircraft loses communication, it doesn't mean that it has crashed. It could be flying very low, out of radar. It could be weather condition, or it could be mechanical. So after 30 minutes, once we realized that we were still not making progress, then we initiated what we call the rescue efforts, because we still didn't know whether there were casualties.
He explains by the time his men arrived at the scene, locals had already interfered with the site.
So the closest military post at that time was the team that had gone to secure the helipad to receive the team, to receive the helicopter. And they were as far as Obuasi. It took them some time to get to the scene. By that time, the locals who were at the scene had already started interfering with the crime scene. So the closest military post at that time was the team that had gone to secure the helipad to receive the team, to receive the helicopter. And they were as far as Obuasi. It took them some time to get to the scene. By that time, the locals who were at the scene had already started interfering with the crime scene.
That's as Chief of Defense Staff there. Another issue of contention has to do with how remains were conveyed, and this is what the Chief of Defense Staff said.
It was in a thick forest, it was getting late. We had the option of leaving our remains there to the following day, and we know what could have happened to the bodies. So the team that was up there assessing the situation decided to use available material they could lay hands on to start to descend the high ground. It was in a thick forest, it was getting late. We had the option of leaving our remains there to the following day, and we know what could have happened to the bodies. So the team that was up there assessing the situation decided to use available material they could lay hands on to start to descend the high ground.
Oh, that's the Chief of Defense Staff there, responding to a number of issues, including why the charred bodies of these gallant Ghanaians were put in cocoa sacks. Says that was the available material and they had to rely on that. And he maintains that his men did their best under the circumstance. Take a listen.
The morning when the aircraft was taken off, nobody expected any such disaster. But from the crash to Accra, it's possible, likely, that some things might have been done that were not in conformity with our culture. But I must tell you that those who are on the ground assess the situation, and from where I stand and looking back, I think that they did the best with the resources that they had at hand. In the morning when the aircraft was taken off, nobody expected any such disaster. But from the crash to Accra, it's possible, likely, that some things might have been done that were not in conformity with our culture. But I must tell you that those who are on the ground assess the situation, and from where I stand and looking back, I think that they did the best with the resources that they had at hand.
Well, so that's the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General William Japan there. The president of the Ghana Journalists Association, Albert Jumfo, has meanwhile cautioned media practitioners to be circumspect in the coverage of the disaster.
Shouldn't I behind disclaimers? Behind disclaimers to put images that are insensitive out there. Ethically, you can't use disclaimer to exonerate yourself. So please, let's be guided. And I know as we go, we will tell the story as it is. Shouldn't I behind disclaimers? Behind disclaimers to put images that are insensitive out there. Ethically, you can't use disclaimer to exonerate yourself. So please, let's be guided. And I know as we go, we will tell the story as it is.
As the president of the Ghana Journalists Association there. Meanwhile, the Deputy Minister for Defense, Ernest Bojajemfi, says the country has requested an international collaboration to aid investigations into the helicopter crash. He assured that the ongoing probe by the Ghana Armed Forces will be transparent, one that Ghanaians can trust, warning the public against misinformation. Christian Yale reports.
4 out of the 8 victims of the helicopter crash are staff of the Defense Ministry. The Deputy Minister for Defense says the armed forces will uncover all the circumstances that caused the fatal crash.
The Ghana Armed Forces have already begun investigations into the incident. We have made requests for international collaboration, and we have received positive response in that regard. And so we want to assure you, our chiefs, that nothing will be covered, it will be transparent, and the public, Ghanaian public, will know exactly what happened and the cause of this tragic accident.
He highlighted the exceptional traits of the late minister, Dr. Bawumia, and the professionalism of the servicemen, but he has cautioned the public to avoid peddling falsehoods.
We also want to caution the media,
you can't use disclaimer to
some analysts who have been churning out misinformation.
So please, let's be guided
and untruth about this whole incident. Ghanaians should trust that the ministry and the Ghana Armed Forces are going to be diligent in the investigations and transparent about it. And whatever was the cause will be known to the people of Ghana, and we will take some lessons out of that.
President of the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs, Ni Odaifio Welenchi III, made a passionate call for an end to galamsey.
Illegal mining, aka galamsey. This is what has cost their life. If we cannot do anything about this holistically, once and for all, that will stop this thing, then these gallant men have died for nothing. This country should rise up and do whatever possible to stop this galamsey in this country.
Having signed a book of condolence at the Defense Ministry, the delegation proceeded to the Armed Forces headquarters at Bema Camp to sign another book of condolence there. The delegation from the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs made a final stop at the headquarters of the National Democratic Congress to meet the party's chairman. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, in his remarks, indicated that the government would not be cowed away from taking drastic decisions to restore the country.
You've all heard about various prophecies, some of them claiming to play the role of God, and some threatening our leadership that more calamities are on the way to happen unless certain things are done. My belief is that what will happen, and we are not going to be cowed away from taking necessary decisions that will restore this country.
On Thursday, August 14th, a mass will be held for 2 of the victims, Dr. Bawumia and squadron leader Anala, in Accra, even before the national interdenominational funeral to be held on Friday.
Christian Yale there. So that's the latest to what has been happening since the last 1 week. Today, exactly a week ago, we were hit with this disaster that led to the death of these 8 gallant Ghanaians. So you had the government confirming that it has indeed sought international assistance in investigating the August 6 Ghana Air Force Z9 helicopter crash in the Ashanti region, which claimed the lives of all 8. And as we do know, the Deputy Minister for Defense, Broja JV, made that announcement. You just heard him there when the delegation from the Greater Accra Regional House of Chiefs visited the Ministry of Defense earlier today. He said that the Ghana Armed Forces had already commenced investigations and was working with foreign experts to ensure a thorough and transparent probe into what happened. So this is why we bring in security analyst Emmanuel Kotin, who's been following the events that have been unfolding since morning. Mr. Kotin, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Hot Edition.
Alfred, thank you for having me. And very good evening to your cherished listeners.
Perfect. In what form should this investigation take? The collaborative investigation between us, the defense minister has indicated, deputy defense minister has indicated that we have sought international support, and then also with the local collaboration. What form should it take so as to ensure transparency and then the public is carried along every step of the way?
Well, let me use your esteemed platform to pay tribute to these 8 fallen gallant heroes, let us put it that way, these fallen heroes. In fact, I'm happy the Minister of Defense have come up with this presser. All along, it was public knowledge that we don't have the capacity to undertake this kind of investigations without any foreign help. If you look at international best practice, even in advanced countries, when an aircraft crash of this nature happens, it involves a lot of stakeholders. And you know that an aircraft by itself, the various components are manufactured by different companies from different countries. So you need the value chain of all the these stakeholders to be able to pinpoint to the real cause of the crash. I think initially, what the government put forward, and some of us criticized, was to say that the military were to undertake this kind of investigations. I think what the government sought to portray at the time was the military to secure the site, then they can come back to this and put the necessary mechanism in place to get the full complement of the investigative team. The good news is that this is a listening government. Many of us had issues with the military leading these investigations. Now they are seeking international help. What we are expecting is that the military should move away from its subculture of being silent and not being accountable to the good people of this country. For Christ's sake, we are in a democracy, and information flow would help cure all the mischief and the propaganda things we see in the golden age of the media we find ourselves, social media. So moving forward, I'm expecting that the military high command should hold a form of pressure. Let the good people of this country know in the last 1 week what they have done and the kind of international help they are looking for, so that it will put every speculation to rest. So I'm happy that at least the Minister of Defense have come forth with this information, Alfred.
And the transparency bit as well, as you commend them for, and there's that concern as well as to how this can be done to help dispel the speculation and then also all the assumptions and others that have been put out there, the propaganda as well about this incident. How should this, to what extent should the transparency be so as to address the speculation, misconception, and the suspicions as people have it?
Alfred, now that we are looking for international help, this investigation is going to take the form of what pertains in international best practices. And speaking to most of the senior military command officers, they are determined to unravel the mystery behind this helicopter crash. And I also believe that, you know, in this country, we have the Air Crash Bureau. We should look at how we can resource that department. I'm telling you, Alfred, send your investigative team or the journalists to look at the state of the Ghana Aircraft Investigative Bureau. Look at the kind of human resources we have there, the kind of retooling we have done there in terms of equipment and things like that. When we are bringing international partners, Alfred, whom are they coming to collaborate with? We will need that civilian element and the military element, and there will be some kind of routine briefing to the general public, because it is not in the interest of Ghana alone that we need to unravel we need to unravel the circumstances that brought this heli down. Don't forget, the integrity of the manufacturer is at stake. And countries who are using this kind of aircraft will be interested to know what led to this crash. You remember Boeing when they had about 2 or 3 crashes with their 378, they grounded all of them. Maybe this investigation could lead to safeguarding the lives of other people in other jurisdictions who have similar aircraft or helicopters. So to me, to this extent, I will plead with the stakeholders of our democracy, our religious leaders, civil society organizations, and then the political class, to refrain from making prejudicial comments that can affect this investigation. Don't forget, we lost some of the brightest minds this country has ever produced. It doesn't matter the political party they belong. This loss is that of Ghana, and it must be reflective in the way we do our things. And I'm convinced that if the current government decide to play politics and propaganda with this kind of investigations, they stand to suffer in the near future. Ghanaians will not forgive them. And the families of these grieving gallant heroes will not equally forgive them. So to that extent, let's allow cool heads to prevail. And some of us have 10 experts in the aviation industry, and we are commenting on things we don't even have knowledge about. And that is not helping the investigations moving forward. But I think the blame lies squarely on the military, because the president put them in charge of the investigations, and they have not come forth to brief the Ghanaian public about the extent of the investigations they've done so far, beyond what the Deputy Defense Minister came to inform us today that they are looking for international help. And the Ghanaian military must understand that their mode has evolved. We are now in the democracy, and they have to fine-tune how to balance military or security process.
Okay, abusuan we ne ensema ekoso ewo political highway so eye Chief of Defense Minister and ayeten nka on my updates on investigations na ekoso ne beda mase samoje penekokoti sa ensem we edemai aha Ghana Politics Avenue. So unsubscribe, subscribe, like, and share ma afofron so ensa into me enkebi beda mase.